Okay, so today I wanted to talk about a question I actually got asked maybe a week ago now, which was in regards to how important DM is. And this is a question I've had arguments with teammates about and things because I used to just always kind of be on the trend of um, you really only need like I guess we'll categorize DM later, but decision making goes a long way and is more important than DM, and that and this was at like the main level or so, and that as you play higher, of course you need better DM to keep up, but the decision making should make up for everything. I don't have this exact opinion anymore, or rather I've kind of built on top of it. And let's actually load up. I wanted to load up just some random demo for the background footage here. Let us look. February 13th, process demo. Sure. This could just be a bad game or a good game. I don't know. But we are going to watch it while I talk about DM. And this is where I would be tabbing out to go look at my notes. If I could, but I'm loading up a demo. Anyway, for starters, I want to first establish what I'm talking about here. Like, what is DM? Of course, just stands for deathmatch. And this might be a little loud. Let us crank you down to half. So DM just stands for deathmatch. It's basically just your mechanics as it relates to fighting another player. So that's your aim, that's your movement, to some degree positioning and decision making as well. But when people talk about DM, they mostly just mean how good are you at killing other players while not being killed yourself. So yeah, and there is always gonna be, I don't know why this demo is kind of stuttery, but whatever. There is always gonna be an inherent overlap between your literal mechanics and your decision making and game sense in game. For instance, if you know what another player wants to do, let's say they're weak and they want to walk to go pick up a health pack, then you can take that into account with how you aim and try and kill them by maybe prioritizing. If you have to shoot a prediction projectile or something, you prioritize shooting at nearer to the pack or something like that. Just things like that. Or if you know what someone's thought process is, you know what someone wants to do, then it's easier to exploit that. Yeah. So now we talk about how important is DM. For starters, I think there's two kinds of DM, or rather, two ways to think about it. So there is that baseline DM that I was talking about earlier, and that's just stuff that, wow, that's just stuff that if you, this is actually kind of distracting doing with the demo open. It's hard to gather my thoughts. Baseline DM, basically, there are shots that you just have to hit to do your role properly. You can't just miss all the time and still be successful, even if you have the correct decision making. So think if you're a medic and you can see a rocket coming that will drop you and you can react to it in time, you should not be dropping to that rocket. You should be forcing. Likewise, if you're a demo, there are certain mid-range stickies that you just need to be able to hit. As a soldier, there's going to be certain rockets that, they aren't really prediction rockets because you're close enough to the enemy that it's kind of unreactable for them. And in those cases, and similar to Scout as well, there's just some shots you should be able to just reliably hit. So for baseline DM stuff like that, it's just the requirements. You need to be able to do this to be successful on your role. Now, of course, as you go higher up in the divisions, that requirement for baseline DM also still increases, even though as a demo, your mid-range stickies, the range isn't going to change or whatever. But the opponents are going to have better movement. They're going to have better prediction for when you're firing, things like that. And you need to keep up with your baseline. And this applies to pretty much every class. So baseline DM is really important, and that's like a requirement to just start being competitive, basically. You need to be able to hit the shots that you need to hit in order to play your role and be successful. But there are some cases where you can go above and beyond. And in those cases, what did I call them in my notes? I called it bailout DM, which it's kind of in the name. There are going to be times where a plan falls apart and either you as an individual or you as a team have things go poorly, and things just aren't going great. You can still have hit a bunch of really good shots and either salvage the situation or even turn it into a good situation, effectively bailing you out. And it doesn't even need to be off of the back of something bad happening. It can literally just be a normal fight, and then someone just completely dips the other person. Like, say your demo just randomly pipes their med or whatever. I guess there's a luck factor to stuff like that sometimes, but someone just going above and beyond and doing something that really isn't necessarily expected of them, and then that just bails you guys out from having to really take a fair fight there. Like, the fight is suddenly just much more in your favor suddenly because of that extra DM factor. So that bailout DM is also quite important, because it's not a requirement to be able to play, but not everything is always going to be going perfectly to plan, and it's nice to be able to hit shots and turn around a bad situation, or just generate opportunities that otherwise wouldn't be there, even if you're still fine with just the baseline DM. So yeah, as far as how DM looks across different divisions, a lot of people wonder how important is DM in the lower levels. Most people think DM's kind of everything. I am kind of the opinion that if a team is coordinated enough to literally just be able to take a pop through Uber and play a flip-flop really well, they could just win Newcomer off of that alone. But there's a lot of work and game sense that goes into being able to do something like that, which makes it kind of hard. But as far as at a really low level, I do think DM is one of the more important skills, just because game sense is generally very underdeveloped for players. So there's a lot of just really messy fights that probably shouldn't have been taken to begin with, where you just need bailout DM. Bailout DM is definitely overemphasized in a lower div, where players and teams just aren't that coordinated and don't have that good of game sense. You might just not be tracking Ubers correctly and you're caught to an Uber completely. If you're really talented, you might be able to bail yourself out of that situation. Just terrible stuff like that. As you get higher up, bailout DM is just inherently always going to be important. So even in your IMs, your mains, your advanced divs, it's still very nice to be able to generate those opportunities or bail yourself out somewhat. But now that game sense starts to take a firmer role, I think a good emphasis on that baseline DM is important, because you can be very successful. You can be a smart player and be very successful just by hitting all the shots that you need to, and just generally being decent without going above and beyond in DM. And in some respects, I could talk about that later. As far as Invite goes, I haven't played Invite, so I'm not really going to comment strongly on it, but I will say it's kind of there is no limit at that point. So unlike an Advanced, where if you get strong enough DM, you are the division above, Invite is kind of just the arms race of DM skill. So you definitely need to have really, really strong DM to be able to keep up with players. Yeah. What do I want to talk about now? Probably, yeah, and my notes ran out a while ago, because I kind of wanted to do this a bit off the cuff. As far as practicing DM, a lot of people ask me what I think about grinding DM, the best ways to do it, and I usually reply with just a list in order from worst to best or best to worst of, you know, things and how good they are at improving your DM. And I usually start by saying that the worst is just pubs. I suppose you could say, like, I don't know how jumping would fit in, because jumping isn't really DM. Jumping is important to be able to do if you play a projectile class, though. But pubs is kind of the worst, because you're not really playing against good players. It's not really a good environment for improving or really being thoughtful about what you're doing. Stuff like that. It's a good example of... That's not bailout DM, that's literally just luck. Oh, another luck pipe there. Okay, whatever. Yeah, pubs, just not really that good. Can be fun, but I wouldn't go into it expecting to really improve that much. You're just improving basic mechanics, like being able to aim where you're trying to and stuff like that. Following that is MGE, actually. I'm really not a big MGE proponent. I hate playing MGE, and I don't really... I don't want to say I don't respect it. Maybe I don't respect it. So you could take my opinions on MGE with a grain of salt, but it very much does not replicate like an in-game situation as much as many people would claim it does. And not even just like in the literal, how often are you like taking a 1v1 with like half buff each player has the exact, like no other factors, just nonsense like that. But just by the fact that like it is an abstraction of the game itself, there are no objectives, and for something that's as interconnected as game sense and DM is in TF2, I think that removing that entire aspect from it kind of definitely doesn't defeat the purpose. I want to be clear, because you still can get a lot of aim practice out of it, and it will help you match up in 1v1s, which will sometimes happen where you have to take a 1v1 with another player. But it's very much not an in-game example, and a lot of the time, people that like super hard grind DM in game modes like MGE or DM servers are kind of like all aim, no brain, and end up actually like it actually evens out in the game a bit, because sure, they can like hit a bunch of shots, but then they position in places where they just die immediately, and it doesn't even like matter anymore how many shots they're hitting. So it is important to have that blend in mind. Speaking of DM servers, that's the second best way to improve, in my opinion. Or I guess third best, depending on how I'm going to split it up. Reason being is DM servers there's just a lot of chaos going on, a lot of things to shoot at, and it more closely simulates like a very chaotic team fight with a lot going on. And as long as you like, and this applies to MG as well, as long as you're like going into it with a mindset and intention to just improve, just take fights to take them, like don't try and play for score or whatever nonsense, because that will defeat the purpose, then it's still like good practice for, you know, connecting shots on players, positioning to dodge shots, things like that will all be adequately improved there with time. And then I guess second best, well, we'll say like second and first best, kind of lump them together, would be pugs and scrims. Scrims, of course, is first, but basically just actually playing the game, right? Because that lets you essentially exercise every aspect of DM that's there, of being able to like read an opponent, being able to have the objective in mind, trying to figure out their thought process and what they're trying to do, and then come up with a plan to counter that, while also just focusing on like the raw aim, hitting shots, you know, playing the smart positioning where you don't take a lot of damage, just things like that that are all the aspects of DM that we talked about, just all packed in one. So as far as improving DM goes, that's definitely the order I would go with. Man, there was something else I was thinking of. What else? This is really this short of a topic? I don't know. That was a good example of just baseline DM. I should have killed that guy like way earlier. I almost could have died if I didn't get bailed out. What else was there? Of course, my notes ran out a while ago. I'll give myself like another 10 seconds here to think of what I was trying to think of. Talked about different places to improve DM. Observers, pugs, scrims. Oh yeah, as far as like improving goes as well, and I am not a player, to be clear, that like ever grinded DM. And I was a player that for a long time was accused of having like really bad DM, and maybe still get accused behind my back as far as I know. Who knows? But I never really focused on DM, because the second you put me in like an MGE server, I'm going to be completely lost, because I very much thrive on that extra context of what someone's trying to do in order to be successful. Like if I can think like through someone's thought process, or I can predict their intention, it suddenly becomes way, way, way easier for me to deal with them. But as far as improvement goes, I do think it's important to well, for starters, like, don't burn yourself out. But honestly, it's just a matter of, like, slow progress, building up good muscle memory. So even just something as simple as, you know, 5 minutes of a DM server every night before scrims or something like that, as much as you can tolerate. It's more a matter of repetition rather than, like, sheer volume. I struggle to, like, keep enough energy to play more than like a round or two in DM, but just playing like one round every day or something will definitely be the way to do it, rather than like a 6-hour MGE session where your brain is just mush by the end. It's very much better to take things in a more methodical way, the same way that when you go to like a gym, I remember this play, this is stupid as hell, the same way that when you go to a gym, you know, you still like need the rest time for your muscles to actually grow. Likewise with muscle memory and stuff like that, you actually need, like, you know, you can just overwork yourself, and you should probably be just taking it one step at a time. I don't know if I have anything else to talk about. That probably covers pretty much everything I have to say about DM, how important it is. Yeah, it's important, but there's other ways to think about it, and I think focusing on where you're at with your baseline DM versus your kind of bailout DM, while both are always important in every division, at least, you know, maybe you have more tools or more ways to think about it. So, probably going to cut it there, and yeah, hope that was useful.